I want to tell you guys about some of my favorite roles that I've ever done as a professional dancer while I put on my pointe shoes. My first favorite role definitely has to be anything Swan Lake. I just loved being a swan in Swan Lake. I think the acting part of it was really, really fun to do because, you had to be sad for Odette. There was a lot of depth and emotion to every swan on stage, It truly was a whole production in itself, and just being a part of that was probably my favorite. Also, I'm a bit biased because Swan Lake is my all-time favorite ballet. I think it's just so beautiful and artistic and moving. Another favorite role I actually did was in Giselle, and it was one of the girlfriends of Giselle. And for the same reason, being that the acting part of it was so much fun and the actual dancing part was also really, really fun. It wasn't too hard. Like Swan Lake was a challenge. It was like a marathon. It was probably one of the hardest roles I ever did in my entire life as the corps de ballet, but of anything else. Like I think the corps de ballet of Swan Lake is actually sometimes harder than principal roles just because of the technical demands that are required to do the corps de ballet in Swan Lake. But like I was saying, I really liked being one of the girlfriends in Giselle because the variation in itself was really fun. It was really upbeat, and there was a lot of acting because the first act of Giselle, is when she unalives, and it's before she's sent to the Willies. And then if you're also Willie, it's also really fun to act in that, and it's so different than the first act, which is so upbeat and so cheery until obviously like she goes crazy. But I just love everything Giselle as well. Another role I loved doing was Red Riding Hood and Sleeping Beauty because, again, it was a lot of acting. It was really fun. It wasn't too technically demanding, but ultimately, it was just a great experience for a young dancer to do a solo role without having the pressure of doing a really technical solo role. Another role I loved doing was Sleeping Beauty Girlfriends as well. Not the Flower Waltz. That was one of my least favorite roles I ever did. But I loved being one of the 6 girlfriends. It was the little jumping one. You're like holding hands, and it was just so much fun. It was so upbeat. You have like these guitars. I don't know. It was just a really fun role to do. Technically and acting wise, there was some depth there as well. Whereas I feel like Nutcracker, there's no depth in any of the roles because it's just like a happy story, and it's very whimsical, very iconic, but it just wasn't like fun or interesting to me. I think one of the reasons that I loved doing Swan Lake was because it was so classical, but also not. It was very free in the port de bras, in the movement. It was very freeing to do the arms. It was very artistic feeling versus some other very like classical roles. I just felt very like stuck in, if that makes any sense. I didn't feel, I don't know, as fulfilled doing those roles. Now, these are just classical ballet roles, but let me know if I should also talk about some neoclassical or modern contemporary pieces that I've also done.